And now it's like afternoon, the sun shining. I'm going to catch this deer in this clear cut or pretty close to it. And he right before the cut, he walked straight uphill. And I'm like, oh no, I'm busted. Like I'm busted. I just blew it. He went uphill. He's uphill watching his backtrack. I'm busted. This is not going to work. And I just had that sick feeling. And I said, well, there's no stopping now. I look up the hill and I start up the hill and only go a little ways and his track's going downhill. I'm like, no way. I just got lucky.
Welcome back to another episode of Northwoods Whitetails podcast. I'm your host, Joey Davis. Tonight, I'm joined by Andy Naylor and his daughter, Brooke, who all of you know. How are you guys doing?
Very good.
Really good.
Andy, tell me a little bit about yourself.
I live in Waterville, Vermont, or Johnson. We're kind of right on the border. Make maple syrup. We have a healthy dry firewood business. We do excavation. Used to do a lot of logging.
How many taps you got?
Around 13,000.
Oof. You guys
It's a lot of work.
sell firewood?
Yes.
Yep.
Dry firewood.
Yep.
Our specialty.
And do all excavation stuff summertime?
Yep.
New constructions?
Yep. New constructions, lane clearing.
Yep. Right around.
Ponds. I love doing ponds.
Yeah.
Yep. I don't know if you can see my pond outside. I did some nice stonework.
That's
around
beautiful.
That yep.
It's beautiful. You primarily work right around here, Lemoyle County?
Yeah. Yep.
Yep.
Lemoyle County. Try not to travel too far. Been to Mad River Valley a few times. I don't really go any further than that.
Yeah. No, I don't blame you. If you don't have to go that far, don't.
You don't have to.
Yep. Plenty to do here. And
Yeah.
Brooke, you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
I think you guys know most of it, but I've been really lucky to work under my dad for, I think it's been 3 years now, 3 or 4 years. But I mean, I've been in the sugar house since I was a baby, so sugaring's my thing. And it's pretty special when you get to work next to your dad every day.
And your mom.
And my mom, Chef Angus. No, it's really special. I'm really lucky.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't be able to do the Northwoods Whitetails thing without having that job in the off season. And
Yeah.
I get to split all the firewood on a giant wood processor, and
That wood processor is no joke either.
it's a beast.
That thing is a beast. That is a beast.
Yep.
The rock crusher. We
The
named
rock
it.
crusher.
That thing's loud.
It's a death trap.
Well, let's dive right into this hunting topic. You want to?
Let's
Go
do
for
it.
All right.
Brooke shot a doe with the muzzle of her gun, like right here. I mean, like, and it was the first time I thought I was going to have to go to the doctors because it went pow, and a fire like flew beside my face. And whatever happened, my eardrum, it went pew, and then it didn't work for like 3 days. Like complete silence.
Got the deer, though.
Yeah, you did. you missed the first one at like.
There's like 8 of them we called in last 5 minutes of youth weekend.
Oh, that was so much fun. The youth
And-
hunts are the best. Those are my favorite hunts of all the hunts.
Yeah.
Youth hunts are the best.
Yeah.
Oh, I know you'll be doing that.
So
with calves.
we'd mess with a deer all weekend in our sugar bush, and Brooke and Haven were pretty good the first day or two.
Just hit record.
It would be well, it's only 2 days. What am I saying? Day or two. The first day would always be buck only. Has to be a buck. Has to be a buck. Has to be a buck. Which is cool. And then Sunday afternoon would be anything goes, right? Like not a fawn, but we're gonna get a deer. So we'd mess with these deer all weekend without messing with them. And Sunday afternoon, I'm like, this is where they have to be, Brooke. They're down in by the brook. They're down in the softwood. I know they are. And that was when youth weekend, this the best weekend probably the whole fall, the first weekend in November, in my opinion. And so we go down there and we sat down. We have the steep ravine. The wind was right. There's no way a deer could get by us without getting some lead thrown at it. And off in the distance, I don't know what it was, 100 yards away, Brooke, I could see some deer chasing. A buck was chasing. We couldn't see antlers, but they was chasing doe back and forth. It's like, oh,
I forgot
this
about
is
that.
cool. So I got a can out and messed with the can and did a couple buck grunts and whatever, and we're sitting there, and I think we were just sitting on the ground, maybe
Yeah.
a stump, but probably just on the
We
ground.
were just on the ground.
Be sure this ravine, they couldn't get behind us, couldn't get our wind, and it was like 5 minutes, 10 minutes left at daylight. It was like 9 of them come
Yeah.
out like point blank. I'm just holding my hands over my ears. I'm just like, shoot. It's been a long weekend. The first big doe comes out.
There was like one way off. What was it? Probably like 80 yards.
I think that was after. Was that after you shot, or was that when
No,
you
there
pulled
was
your
the
gun
long
up?
one, and then another one came out like right in front of me, and
I
I
don't
was
know, they
like,
were just
I
like-
don't think I got that one. Boom, shoot that one.
They were just like, I don't know. We weren't paying attention. I don't know what happened, but they were like point blank, like all at once. And she shot
than
at
20
one, and
yards.
it ran off. I was like, oh, never touched it. And I don't think we'd maybe seen 2, and then all of a sudden they just start like single file, like point blank right in front of us. I'm like, another one, and they're running, and one of them, it was a nice adult doe, stopped, and that's when the gun went off right beside me.
I had no place to rest because we were on the ground, I think.
Right.
Was
So-
it at
Sorry
that
about
point
that.
in time where she got like this killer instinct that she's got to kill everything that moves?
That was way before that.
I've always been like that.
That
I tell
was-
them about my chicken killing, and
Yep.
Anything and everything. She wants to
Yeah.
shoot it.
You're right. Woodchucks, squirrels, but mostly deer. It was mostly deer. I tried really hard to spoil her. Do you remember we went to New Hampshire? I can't remember if we went to Pittsburgh or Monroe
we
or
did go
where
to
we
Pittsburgh, and then we went to Monroe, right behind Walmart.
went. Yeah.
When who made that comment? John the other day on the group text.
I don't know.
I was
Could
like,
be.
"You're not a real deer hunter if you ain't been behind Walmart."
Yeah, right.
That's what I wanted to
Well,
put, but I didn't say
I
anything.
had so many deer go down. I killed so many in New Hampshire that people were just hounding me. Where'd you go? Where'd you go? I was like, the clear cut right across from Walmart. See the power lines right at Walmart right there.
Go get them.
Well, where do you park? I was like, what did Abishon Hardware or Friendlies? Park right there.
Just pick one.
Perfect. They'd leave me alone after that usually.
That's funny.
It is funny.
So at what point did you start lugging Brooke around in the woods?
Probably I used to try and train, if you can call it that, to go elk hunting, and I would put her in a backpack on my back, and because that's how I hunted elk. We'd go in the backcountry for days at a time with a big heavy pack with all your gear, and so Brooke was my heavy gear, So I'd go for runs, try to go like at least 5 nights a week with Brooke on my back. And then I finally took her deer hunting, probably like 4 or 5. And that was entertaining. So much fun. She heard a buck rubbing his antlers on a tree. She heard bucks grunting. They were always
Crazy what your imagination
they were always
can
just
do.
out of sight. They were like, Daddy, they're right there. I can hear them grunting. The antlers are rubbing the tree. She loved it. But we went to deer camp, and I would just try to make it as much fun as I could, Joey.
Yeah.
Marshmallows, hot cocoa, whatever they wanted to eat. I don't care. We'd always try to feed our kids healthy. I don't care if it was ring dings or
Fluff was one of
spam.
them. Yeah, spam, peanut butter fluff.
Yeah, spam actually was in New Mexico. Brooke shot a beautiful bull elk in New Mexico. I used to subscribe to the Hunting Fool magazine, and it would talk about the best youth hunts in the United States. And New Mexico was one of the best states. So I applied, I think, 2 times before you hit a tag. And it wasn't her first choice. You get 3 choices. She got her second choice. And we went to this place called Cloudcroft. And it was just off the hook. After I rented a little house trailer. How old were you, Brooke?
I was 11, almost 12. It was
Yeah.
October 2012.
She probably weighed like 70 pounds.
Yep.
And
I was 20.
so we practiced a
thing.
lot with my 7M08. I bought some of the light ammo, the low recoil or whatever they call it. And, I never told her I switched to the heavy, ammo when we got there. But there were so many bull elk, and they were rutting so hard that by the second or third day of scouting, we would drive down the road, and we have a Ford. I don't know. It doesn't
a
matter.
Ford
We had a
Explorer.
little Ford SUV, and I would bugle out I'd shut the car off. And I'd bugle out the window. If they didn't bugle back, we'd drive off.
No kidding.
I probably heard. I had to have heard 300 bugles the week we were there.
Oh wow.
It was
Never seen or heard anything like it. It was amazing.
Yeah.
We never saw any real big bulls. I think maybe
I thought we saw like a 300 incher that one day right by the road.
300 was about the limit there.
Yep.
But to see that many, one evening, one of the first places we got out, there was like 5 bulls coming up over this ridge, bugling all at once. And we could almost see the car in the parking lot. And they're coming over the hill. We weren't hunting yet. And the wind just switched, you know, how you feel it on the back of your neck. And that gig was over. But that was going to be amazing. If the wind hadn't switched right there, we were like right in the middle of this rut fest.
Yeah.
And we had some other really cool things happen. But Brooke got a really nice elk there the
Good guide.
second day of the season, I think it was.
Yeah. I think it was the second.
Yeah, that was fun.
That was the first time you've ever hunted elk?
Yep.
Killed one on the second day.
Yep.
Good for you.
And nothing like it. I was like, all right, when are we going back? When are we going back? So then I moved to Colorado for college. They were like, oh, you can go to college anywhere you want in the country. I was like, oh, I'm going to go to Colorado. Got to Pueblo, which is a desert and nasty city. And I was like, oh, no. Like, where am I? What did I do? And then my roommate ended up living with her for the summer. And I became a resident because he told me, he's like, I think you only have to be there for 6 months, get your driver's license, and go hunt as a resident. Well, I went and hunted where he shot that mule deer. I tracked a bull, and I came right around the corner. It was probably like 15, 20 yards. He was bedded down looking right at me. And I just, like, I was in awe, I think. Like, and I go to pull up, and he just dives. He was gone. Got back on him the next day, tracked him, saw some glimpses of him, but I got cut off by other hunters, and that was the end of it.
Really?
Yep.
Was there a lot of hunters out there?
Not where we were. I was hiking like 2 miles back
Yeah.
in.
Yeah.
It's like a big horseshoe. Is that the best way to explain it?
Yeah.
It's like two
it's
ridges, and then this.
This is Summit County. I
was
went there the
rugged.
first time, and I think it was 1988. The elk hunting was very, very good. But it's so steep. It's straight up and straight down.
Mm-hmm.
Summit County has 14, I think it's 14 peaks that are over 14,000 feet. They're just everywhere. And there was elk everywhere. Summit County is one of those places that turned into a city almost overnight.
Really?
Yep. The last few times I hunted it, it was like a city hunt.
Wow.
You could get a tag there every year. Well, when I first got there, I could buy an elk tag and a mule deer tag as a non-resident for like $250, $275. Elk tags last time I was there were $575 each, and I lived there for a short time and had non-resident. So I was buying, I think a mule deer was like $25, and an elk tag was like $50 or $60. When I was a resident. So
I think I paid $55 for my resident
Yep.
tag, and then I drew the last elk hunt we went on, the largest elk herd in North America.
oh right.
That was kind of, I wasn't impressed.
No.
I mean, we got one, but
Well, I thought the same thing, Brooke, but looking back on it, we saw elk every single day.
it's true. It was weird. It would like rain and get stormy, and all the elk would come out. Yeah.
So how did you get into the whole elk hunting thing?
So I'm very grateful. My brother was a ski bum, black for a better term, moved to Colorado. I think he moved there in 87 or 88. And I skied, but not really, big into skiing, so to speak. And but I wanted to go get a big mule deer real bad. And I got there, and my brother kept telling me, he's like, you don't want a mule deer, you want an elk. And I'm like, no, I want a big mule deer. I've seen them, and, there was no internet in those days. It was field to stream and outdoor life and stuff like that. So I want a big mule deer. And boy, was my brother right. I got out there, and mule deer. No disrespect to mule deer, but mule deer hunting and elk hunting is night and day. Elk are like a giant whitetail, but then they bugle. So it's you got that like turkey hunting aspect of it. You know, to be going up a big ridge and you're like, I don't even know if we're in the right place, and I don't know, you know, and then just lets out this scream, this massive bugle, and you're like, oh, I'm all in. Whatever it takes. You know, that's where I'm going, and that's where I'm going to be. And so we were hunting big country, what was a big country then, and what would happen it would take about half of the day, and I was in good shape. I was in my early 20s. Takes half the day to get into all the game. Well, half the day you were in there for a couple hours, and there was just elk and deer going everywhere, and it was time to turn around and come back out. And I said, we got to come up with a plan to just stay there. We have to figure out how to stay in the woods, and that's what we did. And then, of course, everyone else I'm sure there were other guys that did it. We never saw anybody that would camp in the woods other than with the horses. They'd go in and set up wall tents. We rode mountain bikes, and we did one hunt my brother and I did on mountain bikes, and we ran right into a outfitters with wall tents, and we saw a bunch of elk, and a bull came out and bugled in a field just like they're supposed to. We didn't have elk tags that year. We had just mule deer tags, and the outfitters, they were going crazy. Like, you guys seen anything? We met them on their horses, and they're like, how did you get in here? And we were like, oh, we rode mountain bikes in for a couple hours. And then rode back out. But anyway, we would sleep in the woods, and that just changed everything. Because then you were in the game all the time, you know. And as the hunting pressure became more and more, the elk would bugle at night, you know. What
makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense. They were getting hunted so hard, they'd become nocturnal, just like a deer will. And, I mean, sometimes we'd even follow them at night.
Really?
You know, stay up at night and figure
Just
out what
listen.
basin they dropped into. Elk were interesting. We had a lot of fun to learn how to hunt. Like deer, you know, a big buck, he always watches his backtrack. He'll make that loop, and he'll come uphill and he'll wait for you, you know, like an idiot. Come, you know, here comes Elmer Fudd, and away they go again, over and over, right? And until you figure that game out. But elk a big bull won't do that. He'll run, he might put 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 miles on, but when he stops, he doesn't look back. He doesn't watch his backtrack. They won't bed down. I can't say never. I have seen them lay down on their backtrack sometimes from the morning, but most of the time, if you're good enough shape, if you can go that 4 or 5 miles, you can just walk right onto them.
Really?
Yep.
What will he do? Just walk right away from you for the most part once you bump him?
Oh, they run.
They run.
Oh, yeah, and they're
You'd be
fast.
good at that sport,
Yeah.
Joey.
They're fast. They're super fast. Like, they can walk faster than a human can run.
Yeah.
And if you ever got one, people that know, when you field dress them, the hearts, the lungs, the organs inside the elk are massive. You know, I've shot a few moose. Moose tend to be wimpy and lay down. They don't take a bullet very well. The elk is night and day. I think one of them I shot like 5 times with a 7 mag. And the last 2 shots were about 30 yards, one through the neck and one behind the front shoulder. And I was going to shoot it again, but I could see the blood squirting. There was like a fountain, like a garden hose coming out off his beard on his throat. And then behind the shoulder, it was squirting out about 4 or 5 inches, pumping. And I was going to give him another one, and then I thought he was going to take off, and he was just wobbling. He fell down.
Just
But,
so much
they're
adrenaline.
super tough. They're a very tough animal. I have got some that you shot behind the shoulder, and they would go a short distance and pile up. I think I've shot 2 that dropped in their tracks, but for the most part, they're really a rugged animal.
Yeah.
I've heard mountain goats are like that. I've heard goats are really can be hard to kill.
Huh.
So elk hunting is my favorite. The country's so beautiful. The air's drier. I've actually
fun.
thought a lot about trying to hunt in New Hampshire. You know, the White Mountains, the woods are big enough to hunt that way. But I could never figure out how to keep my clothes dry. I have the sweat gene. I can feel myself sweating a little bit right now. The air conditioner, I don't know if it shut off. But I could never figure out how to stay dry. Out west, you could just take your clothes off, hang them in a tree. In a few hours, everything's dry. Your socks will be dry. Your jacket will be dry. Even if it snows, even if it rains, things dry out.
It's
You
a
can
different, completely different element.
completely
here.
different. You can sleep on the ground.
You get
Actually, the last bull you got, we slept on the ground for a few hours.
Yeah, we took a nap.
That was a
We
pretty.
got soaked that morning, and then we went in on them, slept in the woods, then
That-
went after them.
That was a
had
pretty
lunch.
funny story.
Yeah.
We saw a herd cross behind private land on a ranch, and they went up this big cut on the other side. I don't know, what were they, Brooke? 2 or 3 miles away.
Yeah, but it was like 7 or 8 to like loop around the private.
We had to get around this
Yeah.
little dude ranch thing. So that was
It's like
like
a long
couple
strip.
2 or 3 miles, and then 2 or 3 miles up in this cut, and we saw them in the cut, and then they went off like just like a deer up in the top corner, the secret part of the cut. They went into the woods to bed down for the day. I said, I know we could go up there and catch them. Whether we could shoot one or not, I don't know. So, well, let's make a plan. We really didn't want to have to go that far. I'm getting old. My back was
I
killing
was all
me.
for it, but he
My
wasn't having
my
it.
L5 S1 is shot. Doctors have told me over and over to stop running chainsaw and change my ways. But anyway, so I was in a lot of pain then. I can't remember if I had injections just before we got there or not. But in any case, we were soaked. Let's go back to camp and get some drier clothes or whatever. It was still early morning, 8 o'clock maybe, but we'd been out before daylight. And there's this beautiful ridge up on the upper side of the road. It was all the quaky aspen. And you get in some of that stuff, you can shoot a couple 100 yards, a big, beautiful, like park-like forest. And I said, Brooke, look up on the ridge. I'm driving. I said, Brooke, look up on the ridge and spot a bull elk, and we're going to stop and shoot it. And it wasn't
10 seconds. Stop.
maybe 10 seconds.
Maybe not even.
Dad, stop, big bull. And I lock up the brakes. I have my sneakers on. We jump out, and he's bugling. And so
Yeah.
I'm the caller, right? I don't have a tag. And you had a muzzleloader. You had my
Yeah,
muzzleloader.
muzzleloader peep sight.
Yeah,
1 week
muzzleloader peep sight.
this
And
September.
it's like a bone collector, but I went to Rochester, and they built me a muzzleloader right there when it was in Rochester, New Hampshire. So anyways, we run up, Brooke's running up the hill. She's a shooter. I'm back calling. I don't know. She saw a couple glimpses of it. It was too far. I don't know. It's kind of your story
Broadside,
now.
right uphill, but with a peep sight, it was just too far, just a little too far. And I don't think he came down enough. But anyways, you were calling and cows were running everywhere, and
I was
kidding.
winded. I mean, it was
Yeah,
kicking
we
my
just-
ass. It was like
Yeah.
a lot of
we just
elk
got to
country.
like the top of a hill, and I just couldn't breathe. He couldn't breathe. Just it was.
Her
we
hand
were
signals weren't very
so-
good. Like she's shouldering her gun. I'm like, I'm calling, I'm bugling.
Yeah.
I'm like,
The
what do you want me to
adrenaline.
do? I'm like taking sticks, smashing trees, like
Yeah.
doing everything I could. She's not communicating to me like what's going on up there. And finally the gig was up. They were gone. And so we went back to camp, studied the map for a long time because I knew they just like a buck, they'll go uphill and bed down.
Yeah.
So we found some bedding areas, some old ponds and some clearings and stuff, and we looped up around and back to the being out west laying on the ground. We got up there and we were getting real close to where I was confident they were bedded. We've never never hunted this place before. The Lily Pad Trail or something
Yep.
like that. Yep.
Lily
I shouldn't be
pad
giving
pond
away all your secret spots.
whatever. I'll probably never go back.
Oh, I would like to. So we get up there, and the wind midday is swirling. Thermals are a big thing out west. The wind's swirling back and forth. And this kid is like hot to trot. Let's go, Dad. We're going to go kill him right now. I'm like, you can't go in there, Brooke. You can't go in. The wind's all over the place. We're just going to bust them out of there, and we'll be right back to square one. And we slept on the ground for, I don't know, 3 or 4 hours.
Yeah.
And finally it got to, the sun starts to set a little bit, and shadows get long, and the wind got predictable. And I said, now we can hunt. And yeah, it was cool. I called that bull in. I saw him. We were going one way. He was going another. And I cow called, and he turned and came right at me, and I had no cover.
And
Oh, this isn't,
yeah.
I'm
we're
like,
10 feet apart.
and I'm like, this is
No
never going
cover.
to work. I have no cover. Okay, was my face covered up? I usually will wear face masks like turkey hunting for elk.
I
can
don't
pick
know.
your
I think
face
you
up.
might have done one of these.
I think I put my glove over my face. It doesn't matter. So I cow called. And he just like comes right over. 5x5, 6x5.
I don't know.
I don't know. Is it like a
it's
2-year-old?
a
Nice,
yeah.
nice rack bull. So
Just
he
a
comes
baby.
over, but I've got nothing to hide behind Joey. I'm like, this is never going to work. And he comes over and he's staring right at me. And he's so horny. He goes to walk off, like, gets a little nervous. And I cow called and he just comes closer. And he gets nervous again. And he comes closer. And I'm like, why aren't you shooting? You're 10 feet beside me. I can't communicate with her, but I'm looking, at her and the bull. Like, don't tell me she's going to pass this bull up. Like, come on. Like, this is a nice rack bull. Like, Brooke, shoot this thing. And finally, I don't know how, it was under 20 yards. It's,
Yeah, it was 25 yards all
nothing.
day.
I have nothing. There's
All
no
day.
cover. There's no tree. There's
He comes straight and then turns.
straight at me. And at like 20 yards, he decided that was plenty close to me. He goes 90 degrees, steps in front of her. And I think you had like
And
a
he's-
quartering 2 shot.
No, he was perfectly broadside.
Oh, he was?
But he stops and there's a tree perfectly
Oh, right.
lined up with his back shoulder. I'm like, oh shit. And I kind of panicked. I'm like, where do I put it? I'm like, just send it. Just send one. Where big mass, just send one. And then he took off and we walked over. No blood, no hair.
There was a little teeny piece of hair.
Was there?
Yep. But not like a 50 caliber chunk, like a little bit of hair.
And when we were shooting target, those were big holes in the paper.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, okay, well, how did I miss?
Yeah, because that's a full 50 caliber. The Hornady, is it MZM? I can't remember. You have to use them in Colorado also because they're full. You can't use a Sabot. That or maybe, yeah, that was Colorado. I'm getting confused with Wyoming.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
you're
it
right.
was a full 50 caliber. And when you hit him, it almost knocked him down. He did kind of went down and did the 180. And I was like, awesome, Brooke, you nailed him. Like, you almost knocked him down. And, but then we went over, it was like no sign, no evidence. And same thing, she's hot to trot. Let's go, we're going to go get him. I'm like, you're not going anywhere.
I'm like bowing tears.
We're
Like,
gonna give him.
no.
We got like 3 hours of daylight. We're gonna give him some time, and muzzleloaders. Lots of times you don't get a lot of blood, and so we went for a little nature walk, and
He calmed me down. told
calmed
me
her
some
down, talked her down
stories.
off the cliff, kept telling her it was gonna be okay, and we would define because I did maybe 20, 25 yards. We looked for blood. There was nothing to be found, and.
No.
The ground's hard out there too. It's not like tracking a moose here. They're pretty similar in size, not as big as a moose, but you can't track very well on that ground. So we went for a little nature walk. What were we gone? Maybe 45 minutes,
Yeah.
and it was a thunderstorm, downpour.
Yep.
And I said, "Well, it's your lucky day, Brooke. We can't wait any longer. We have to go right now." And we ran all the way back, and no blood, no nothing. His legs weren't broken. I thought you kind of were aiming quartering to the front shoulder, but you had a much better view at that point than I did. So you kind of hope to see like one leg's favoring, one leg's not planting solid, and didn't look good. I tracked it into this meadow. When we got to the other side,
Yeah, this meadow in the middle of the field, and all of a sudden I could smell him. I said, he's right here. He's right here. Took probably like 10 steps into the woods, 60 yards out. He's just standing there like not, that's when you know, okay, they're hurt. Like something ain't right.
Hunched up.
well,
But I didn't
she
have-
turned around, looks at me, and she goes, "Dad, there's a bull right there." And I'm like, "Shoot it!" Because your bull, they usually don't just stand right
And,
there.
yeah, and then I still had not a good shot, so I had to put it between the ass and the guts, and I dropped it.
Spined it.
Spined it, then had to go over and put one more in it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
The gunpowder smoke's coming right out of his nose. The sun's shining perfectly down on him.
You gotta do
Made
a
for some
video.
good-
You gotta
good
you gotta put
pictures.
that on Northwoods Whitetail.
Yeah.
We had some pretty good footage there.
Yeah,
How many elk have you got?
just two.
Just two? Just those
Just two.
two? Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah.
oh my God, I bawled my eyes out
Really?
for like 10, 15 minutes.
They were happy tears.
I just,
Yeah.
I was so happy to be there. Like,
That's cool.
I think it was
was
nine
that-
years I had waited since getting that big one, and I was just so excited, so
And you had-
jacked.
You were so excited, and you'd failed the year before, right?
And I'd
Summit
failed.
County.
I came close.
Yeah,
That was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
That was a lot of fun. That was on snow
Really?
too. It was deep. It was rugged. I was sleeping in my RAV and bombing it down class 4 roads, and yeah,
That's
I
fun.
was having fun.
That's a good time.
Yep.
Now, how many states have you elk hunted?
New Mexico, Idaho, Colorado,
Wyoming.
Wyoming. Yep. I guided, I think it was early 90s. I guided one fall. So I had a serious girlfriend and I didn't really want that to work out. And I said, if it doesn't work out, I'm going to go hunting out west. And in those days, I was very serious about hunting. There was no internet. And I was like, how am I going to get a job guiding out west? I'd already killed an elk and mule deer and a handful of whitetail here. And so I wrote a letter and I took a picture of myself with the best buck I had got at that time. And I photocopied this high-tech rec. I photocopied like 30 photocopies of my picture with a letter, and I sent it out to Outdoor Life and Field and Stream and every place out west I could think of. And probably wasn't the best idea I had. I think I took the second job offer I got, and I worked for a really crooked guy named Rick Sears, Apache Pirate Cattle Company. So he would lease this land. He'd run cattle. I don't know if Rick's still alive, but he was a crook. And most of the time I worked with his son-in-law and his daughter, Cappy, and they were great people. But anyway, he just oversold his hunts. He would tell everybody they were going to get a 30-inch mule deer and a 350-inch 350-inch elk, and it just wasn't true.
Yeah.
It just wasn't true.
Yeah.
It was a side hustle for him. He really was into the cattle. He'd lease the cattle, and it was cool. My boss, he was a true cowboy, and he was camp boss, and he had like 4 or 5 blue heelers that were really vicious. They would bite you. He wasn't afraid to tell everybody. They were gonna, you don't get near my dogs, they're gonna bite you. I think they bit you for fun. They were pretty much always in a cage or a fence. And he had horses, he had his cattle dogs, and he had a dirt bike. And he wouldn't hunt with us. He would spend all day pulling the cattle off the high country while we hunted. If we got something, he would help us, and he would guided me a lot to teach me the country and what to do. And so that was pretty cool. But that was a tough job because you could have so much fun with one hunter, and then the next week could be a nightmare.
Just don't know what you're getting for a client.
You don't know who you're getting for a client. You know, it could be like a hunt with some good old boys from Oregon. I had some good hunters from Florida, and then I had some other guys that would, they're wearing nylon pants and they just whined the whole time, and so
Yeah.
And there's nothing more frustrating than looking over someone's shoulder that can't hit anything.
Yeah.
You go to all this work to put something right in front of them, and they can't shoot or don't know how to shoot or don't know how to sneak or don't know how to be quiet.
Yeah.
But it was a good experience. Like a lot of things, it was worth doing.
Yeah.
I also got to guide antelope in Colorado Springs. I was just thinking tonight before we did this, I don't even know the name of the ranch. We were driving in a back road. The ranch was so big. It was 17 miles wide and 29 miles long.
Wow.
I saw some beautiful mule deer and saw some beautiful whitetails. Huge whitetails. I think it's pretty famous now. Would that be the eastern? Is it the eastern? I don't know. Whatever. There's a name for it. But anyways, I don't even know the name of the ranch. I never went through the front gate. But most of those big ranches have the big, fancy, entrance, and we would just drive in this little dirt road and hunt these little shacks, basically.
Yeah.
A lot of them were abandoned farmhouses that we worked out of. So that's how I ended up in Colorado. My brother's a ski bum.
Yeah. No kidding.
Yeah.
When was the last time you've been out elk hunting?
Good question.
Wyoming.
Yeah.
2020.
Yeah. Kyle
pandemic.
Williamson and I. You were out there, Brooke. You were. Yep.
Yep.
And we both got elk. I my first elk with a bow. It was a crossbow, but I still try to count it, as a bow.
Yeah.
I lost a real big one a couple years prior with another friend of mine, Todd Bourgeois. And so Kyle and I went out. Brooke was living in Colorado, so she came up to Wyoming, not that far away, and filmed for, 4 or 5 days.
Before I was a filmer.
Yeah, like
Kyle,
five.
Kyle's like, here you go. You're going to run the handy cam.
That's pretty dedicated to
And I loved
backcountry
it.
camp with us for 5 days.
Yeah, it was beautiful.
No kidding.
We
And,
got to see the medicine bow. Is that what that was? Yeah, that was
What is that?
epic. It's,
That's the mountain range
mountain
that we
range.
hunted.
Yeah.
Medicine bow. It's,
Got up on this big rock pile and you can just see forever. But the medicine bow was beautiful.
mhm.
It's like,
Yeah.
isn't it kind of cliffy?
Yeah.
It looks like a big
Yeah,
rock,
it's
basically.
it's a huge mountain. One part was a big bowl.
Hmm.
It's a beautiful
Show some
country.
pictures.
I kind of like to think Wyoming's like what Colorado was like 30 years ago.
Is Wyoming the place to go?
I think so, especially if you're not afraid of grizzlies.
Yep.
I think if you go over on the west side and if you're not intimidated by grizzlies, I think, you're getting near Yellowstone. I think the elk hunting's probably awesome. I've never elk hunted there just because I don't want to deal with grizzly bears. That's why we were in the Medicine Bowl.
Yep.
And I also hunted up north. I think it was Sheridan. Drove up there. It was quite a haul to go from southern Wyoming to northern, but there's no grizzlies there either. And that's a general tag. You can draw. You used to be able to draw it every other year. My youngest son Haven and I should have drawn that tag this spring. We had 3 points, or I had 3 and he had 5, something like that. And we didn't get the tag, so I don't know what's up with that. But that's
It
how.
seems it's harder and harder to pull tags everywhere, even the whitetail
It is.
world.
Getting real close to a really good tag in Colorado mule deer. I think I got like 15 points in Colorado now for mule deer,
Wow.
and probably 8 or 10 for elk.
Nice.
I got 9 for Wyoming. Well, this year will be 10.
And how many does it take to pull in Wyoming?
Depends what you want to hunt, like where you want to hunt. You have to get on Top Rut and figure out. You just filter.
To all the
You
hunts
do a
I
bunch
did
of
there,
filters, and it will like tell you, okay, you need 14 points, 10, 8, and that tells you your draw odds. And
Are you using an app to do this? Like
so
a-
it's part of Onyx.
Oh.
Yep, it's a.
Is that
you have to have
Top
the.
Rut?
Yep.
Yep,
Do you have to have the elite membership? Correct.
I think so.
Yeah.
The Hunting Fools used to be a great resource. It'll tell you all the odds. It'll help you how to draw. I think Randy Newberg, you must know who he is. He's a TV character. He has a pretty good. What's his deal called? He has a thing where he'll explain the points and
Yeah.
all
hunt
those states.
something.
All
I know
those
what you're talking
states are
about.
so wacky.
Yep.
It's I don't even apply for New Mexico anymore, because I used to be able to apply and you'd be out like $50, and maybe 8 or 10 years ago they changed the way they give the tags. They only give like 8% of the tags to non-resident, and the 5% of the 8 only go to guided hunts. So it was only a 3%, not a 3% chance. Only 3% of the tags would go to someone like me, non-guided public land or non-guided non-resident. I love public land. I'm not into guided stuff, and
Yep.
no disrespect, but it's just more. I'd shoot a smaller buck or a smaller bull like on public land.
Yep.
Seems to be more fun, more of a challenge. People can't tell me where to go, what to do.
Yep.
That's how I hunt Pennsylvania, a little bit of Ohio.
Yeah. So when you're not elk hunting, you like to whitetail hunt.
Yep,
You've
Love
hunted
to.
all over the place for those.
yep, love it.
Where
Yep.
have you hunted?
Maybe you should say, where haven't I? Kansas, Iowa, Ohio, New York, Pennsylvania, New Hampshire, Maine, New Brunswick, Ontario.
You've hit them all.
New York.
I try. I'm sure I missed some.
Well, I got one in New York.
Obviously Colorado. Yeah, New York I've hunted.
Mm.
I don't want to tell you where my favorites are. No,
You don't have to.
Listen, New Hampshire's got a place in my heart. Always will. Nothing against Maine, but there's some really. New Hampshire's been good to me. I like the muzzleloader season,
Yeah.
early stuff. And I kind of given up. Like I haven't hunted in Maine or New Hampshire for a few years. I got tired of the no snow. Really frustrating to want to take that much time off and not have snow. 'Cause there's nothing more fun than chasing deer on snow. You know, the way you guys do it, tracking. That's the best way. That's the funnest way.
Yeah.
I always used to track deer, and then I wasn't that good at it, and I was one of the first people in my crowd that I knew of that climbed in a tree. I kept pushing bucks through the same places, and it dawned on me one day. I said, "Why am I doing this? If I just sit in that little notch, someone else is going to chase that buck right through here. It's just a matter of time." I did it over and over, and then I started to get really successful. And after you do it a few times, at first you don't really know what you're doing. Like I didn't have a great teacher. My father took me hunting maybe a handful of times as a kid, and he never taught me how to hunt. He just taught me how to get in and out of the woods safely, mostly out. We'd go to Belvedere, big woods in Belvedere, and he taught me woodsmanship, but he never taught me how to hunt. But after you knock a few deer down and like you start to recognize the similarities, mostly saddles.
Yep.
And then as you do more, you start to recognize other funnels and other deer sign, and you just know, hey, if I hang out here, I'm going to kill a buck right here. Like
Would you be pulling all day sits?
Not very often.
No.
No.
Would you try and
But
get
even when I track deer, I would try to stay still the first hour or two in the morning if I could, and then in the evening, the last hour or two.
Yeah.
Even if I didn't know where I was, even if it was just a cut I was unfamiliar with, maybe it was some ground scrapes that I'd found tracking deer. I'd usually try to spend that first hour and a half in the morning just standing beside a tree, sit on a stump, sit on a rock. And the same in the evening. A lot of stuff happens right before dark.
It's pretty tough to sit all day long. You can't dress for both, right? Like you can't dress to sit all day and go walk, right? You can't.
And it's just not fun.
Yeah.
I mean, this when you climb in a tree stand and you can see 5 or 6 ground scrapes and there's 3 or 4 inch, 5 inch trees hooked up, you're pretty excited. And after a few hours of not seeing anything, your confidence goes away pretty quick. But if you take the month off to go to Maine or New Hampshire and you just don't get snow, then you do, and it's crunchy and it's frozen, and
You got to make do.
yeah, you do. Or you can go somewhere else where there's a lot of deer, and you can, and you can go shoot a little one like I do. So Brooke and I last year in Pennsylvania shot buck, like 60 seconds apart, maybe?
Yep. I told that story on, I think it was the first podcast I ever did, after Jamie shot her big one.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
You did. You talked about it. Yeah.
That was fun.
Yeah.
So you asked me the last elk I got. I was in Wyoming. It was with Kyle Williamson, and it was his first elk hunt. I think he loved it. Kyle's a great hunter, and he just loves to hunt anything. And Brooke was there for the first few days, 5 days or whatever. So Kyle and I drove way up to, I think it was Sheridan. It was like 5.5 hours. We got up there, and there was a lot of moose and not many elk. And we turned around and came right back. And we both got bulls that morning.
It's like the same time.
And I texted him. I hit one. I didn't even go over. I didn't even know where I hit it. I just knew I hit it. And I texted him. I had to hike up a hill to get cell service. I hiked up the hill. Not a big hike, 15, 20 minutes. And I texted him, said I just hit one. And he said, I got one. He said, he just wrote, got one. And I said, well, I don't know. I hit one. And he goes, no, I got one. And I was like, no, I got one.
That's awesome.
Next thing you know, the phone was, then we quit texting and called, and that was pretty cool. It was kind of like Brooke and I deer hunt. Like
Yeah.
we'll never know who shot their elk first, but
Yeah.
anytime anytime your buddy gets an animal the same time you do is pretty remarkable.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, you don't
Yep.
forget them.
That's what makes it fun.
Does.
Memories.
Yep.
So you got a pile of deer heads in here. What is one that stands out to you?
I don't know. They're all a lot of fun. Probably the 8-pointer in there I got in New Hampshire. I got the flu, laid on the couch for about a week, Thanksgiving week, and it was just killing me. But I just couldn't go. I couldn't move. My whole body ached. It was probably like COVID. You know, this is way
Yep.
before COVID, but that feeling if you just can't budge. And finally I said, I can't take it anymore. There's good snow outside. I have to go. And I think I probably got to hunt muzzleloader over there. And now it's rifle, of course. And I went over in the afternoon, stayed at my usual hotel, and didn't really get into a whole lot, but, you know, got out in the woods a little bit. And that night we got more snow, and it was like a wet, sloppy mess. It was like perfect for following a deer. It had that wet plop, plop, drip, drip. It wasn't real windy. And I pulled onto this one log road, and I was looking for tracks, and I'm like, there's a track right there. That's kind of weird. It's in the ditch, but it never crossed the road. So I hopped out of the truck, and this buck had come down off this ridge, and he walked down to the road, and he was looking at this whole series of beaver ponds across the road, and he paralleled the road for maybe 50 yards, and he would stand and look down in the beaver pond like maybe he was, I don't know if he was expecting to see a doe in there. He was checking the air. I don't know what he was doing, but he never crossed the road. He turned and went back up in. So I felt pretty fortunate to find that track
come
that
across
didn't
it.
cross the road.
Yeah.
And I knew it was a big buck. I mean, I knew immediately that it was a good one. And just like I said, perfect conditions. I followed it up the hill. He was just puttering around. I was so excited, Joey. I bet I shouldered my rifle probably 50 times. I was just like bird hunting. I would just snap it to my shoulder. I'd pop the safety off, and I was just going as slow as I possibly could. I always go too fast, and I just was like, I'm going to shoot this deer. I'm right here. Where is he? And I didn't go that far, maybe an hour, maybe not even that long. He pops up out of his bed like 60 yards, and I just popped him. I really didn't get that good of a look at his rack. I just knew it was big. I just knew it was like, and honestly, I remember when he took off, I was like, wow, those were some brow tines. And I knew I'd popped him. I mean, I just knew, it wasn't a hard shot. He just stood up out of his bed, and I nailed him. And I went over there, and there was blood everywhere. He was double lung, and that was satisfying. I think I've told you I've shot a fair amount of bucks tracking, but never a big one. They were always like, 150 pounds, 175 pounds, 2-year-old,
Yeah.
nice deer.
Yeah.
But I don't know. That was a fun one.
Yeah.
It was kind of quick.
Pretty
But-
good deer.
Yeah.
You got wicked brow tines on
Yeah,
it.
brow tines on it. It's got a hole in the horn on one side. I'd never got one of those before.
What did he weigh?
That was 218
Yeah.
2 days after Thanksgiving.
Oh, wow. Pretty
yeah.
good then.
Yep.
And
Yeah,
you got one upstairs, you were telling me. 240?
240, yep.
Yep.
In Maine.
Bare
That-
ground?
No, there was a little bit of bad snow. I was hunting with my friend Tim Young, and he had hunted there a few different years. He knew the country a lot better, so we were up there together, and with not a whole lot, we hadn't got much action going. He said, I think I know where the deer are. They're over in this certain part or whatever. So we go stomping around in there, and I came across a track, and there was a big buck. It had laid down once, but it rubbed a tree about the size of your index finger. I was kind of hoping to see some more damage than that, and no cell phones up there. And I walkie-talkie to Tim. I said, "Hey Tim, I got a big buck track over here," and he's like, "Really? I want it. And I'm like, "You want it on this crunchy snow? There's like 1.5 inches, 2 inches of snow, and it was so loud. I was like, if you want it, you can have it. I would much rather get out in front." And so it took us a while. He was a ways away, and we swapped, and he took the track. And I said, Tim, where would I go? How would I get in front of this deer? And he said, I only know one place. And he said, it's down by this beaver pond. There's a crossing or whatever, and try to find it if you can. And I did, and I thought I did. I did the best I could by the description he gave me. And I stood there for about an hour, and I started getting real cold, and all of a sudden I could hear that was, that exciting, that pattern of deer. He wasn't running, but he wasn't walking either. He was coming at a pretty good clip. And this old log road had grown all up with Christmas trees on the side of it. It was pretty thick. You couldn't drive a pickup truck up or down it. It was too grown in. And he just stopped. And I'm like, my gun's at my shoulder, like I'm ready, like 30 yards, like he's gonna pop out right there. I've got him. I mean, like I could already hear his antlers on the trees, and I'm like, and he just stopped. I'm like, oh no, this can't be happening to me. And I hear a little crunch, and he sticks his head out of all these evergreens, all these balsams, right out into the road. And he just like a little kid crossing the street. He looks up one side of the road, and he turns and he looks up the other, and then he looks back, and I was gonna shoot him right there. And I was getting ready to pull the trigger, and then after he looked both ways twice, he just hopped right into the road. And I dropped him right there. I got him. It was quartering to 30-06. Down he goes. He's flopping and thrashing, and I got him, and he got out of that road, jumped back into the balsam, and he knocked down a tree, like, I don't know, 4 or 5 inches, dead tree. And like there was a biggest commotion. I was like, oh no, it can't be getting away. So anyways, that was a great hunt. I thanked Tim for that one.
It was the buck he was on.
Yep.
No
Yeah,
kidding.
it was. He came along like half hour later. He obviously heard me shoot.
Yeah.
And he came onto it, and we got it out of there. So that was the biggest 240. Not a great rack, but I called it a 9.5 pointer. Yeah, you got to count all the points you can.
That's a pretty good buck.
That was fun. Yeah. Probably my favorite, the best deer hunt that I've ever had was in, not sure if I was in Maine, but I was road.
Yep.
And I'd hunted there earlier, and it was the only year, I wanted in those days, I was pretty serious. I wanted to get 3 bucks if I could, or 200 pounds. And I got a 200 pounder in Vermont. I got a 200 pounder in New Hampshire. And I was determined to get a 200 pounder in Maine. And I'd went to Maine once and didn't connect. And then I went back up, and it was the last day of rifle. And I said, I'm going to hunt the last day of rifle with my rifle, but I'm really a muzzleloader hunt. And I got there, and I went up road. And it was like, I had the place like all to myself. It was huge buck track, big splayed track, walked across the road, and I was going to take it. And I said, you know what? I've screwed this up before. I'm going to ride in the truck a little bit longer. And I went up the road about, I don't know, half a mile, and that truck came out of that woods and crossed the road. And I'm like, oh, thank goodness. I just saved myself like 3 hours of him chasing doe around in the night. And so we get up on this, I get out of the truck, go up on the ridge, and he had gone on this migration trail, I don't know, a long ways. And we got in, I made a swing on him, and I got into another buck, and it was so cool. That was like probably like 175, 80-pound deer. I wasn't thinking about my third 200-pounder. I tracked this deer through the little Christmas trees, the evergreens. You could see, it was perfect. There was little powder on the trees, and you could see right where the deer went without even tracking. And I'd followed him for maybe 200 yards on the top of this ridge, this Christmas trees, and I forgot all about the big buck. I was like, I'm on with this other buck now, and all of a sudden there he is, like 40 yards, staring right at me, and I cranked the scope up to 9 power, and it's inside its ears, and I'm like, no, that's not big enough. That's not what I'm here for. Well, I'd had problems with that rifle. It was a Remington 7600, and I'd let the action get dirty or rusty, and those things have a safety mechanism. If the bolt doesn't go all the way forward, it won't fire. And I should have known better. I had problems with it earlier when it was dirty, and this buck and I stood there looking at each other for like 3 minutes. Sorry. And so he goes to take off. And when he does, he had a really nice rack. And I went to fire and the gun wouldn't go off.
Oh, no.
And I'm like, oh, you got to be kidding me. I was so mad. I took that gun and I slammed the little action right on a softwood tree. And I slammed it closed and pulled up, pow, pow, and the gun fired. So I popped another couple more shells in it. And this isn't really part of the story, but it kind of is. It was memorable that day. So I'm like, I got to forget about this deer. That huge buck is still, I was making a swing on it when I came onto this one. I got to go back to the big one. And I haven't cut its track yet. So I go back, and he was still on the migration trail. And we went a long way. Anybody that's hunting down below there is a road. And I didn't know where I was going. I didn't have cell phone. I didn't have a map. I didn't have anything. I was just chasing deer. And it was the only deer that ever followed up there. And he would walk down the trail, and he'd keep throwing his right hoof out to the side of the trail. Well, that's kind of weird. Why is he doing that? And then I realized that when the trees would get narrow, he would throw his right hoof out to get his rack to fit through the trees. Mm-hmm. And he stopped and he rubbed on a brown ash, tore it up pretty good. Now I'm really excited because the track was an awesome track. He'd walk on the back of his feet. You just knew it was a big old deer. And him skirting when the trail would get brushy, he'd go out through the wide open and then go back onto this migration trail. So we get to the edge of this clear cut, and the timber's all jackshot, I call it, where the wind on the edge of the clear cut has knocked all the trees down. And now it's like afternoon, the sun shining. I'm going to catch this deer in this clear cut, or pretty close to it. And he, right before the cut, he walked straight uphill. And I'm like, oh no, I'm busted. Like, I'm busted. I just blew it. He went uphill. He's uphill watching his backtrack. I'm busted. This is not going to work. And I just had that sick feeling. And I said, well, there's no stopping now. I look up the hill, and I start up the hill, and only go a little ways, and his track's going downhill. I'm like, no way. I just got lucky. So now I go downhill. I go downhill maybe 75 yards, and this buck is laying down. His rack's like 2 feet wide, and he's facing away from me. And I'm like, yes, like it's Christmas morning, right? I don't know if he heard my heart come out of my chest or I stepped around a little balsam or what it was, but he swings around. And when he does, like there just seemed like the whole world turned with his rack, and he looks right at me. And I just started punching lead down through. I got 2 or 3 of him trying to stand up, and then 2 or 3 of him going into the clear cut. And I'm just jumping up and down with joy. I had 3 bullets left. I popped 2 off at my gun failure before. I got him. It's the last day of rifle. I'm not even going to have to hunt with my muzzle loader. I got 3 200-pounders. Like, I just couldn't believe how wide it was. The rack was heavy. The tines were very short. It was an old deer. I am just so happy. So I don't even go down and look for sign. I just go right out into the clear cut. Like, he was running that way. I'm going this way. And I get out, and I'm looking in the clear cut for the rack sticking up or some hooves or whatever. There's nothing to be found. So I get out in the clear cut, and there's like the tiniest little bit of blood in his track. And I mean tiny. And I was like, this can't be happening. Like, I want to puke right now. And I went back. I shot a tree. I shot in the dirt. A couple rounds, I don't know where they went. I never touched that deer.
You were excited.
I think the blood that I saw, I think that I scared him so bad. I think he like tore his dew claw. I swear he tore his dew claw running through the garbage on the edge of this clear cut, because there was only a tiny bit of blood in one spot in his track. So then he runs like this clear cut. It'd be like a clear cut that a guy from Massachusetts dressed in orange would sit over for weeks. And he runs like 700 yards across the whole thing. And then there's a road. And I'm like, hey, this could happen again. Like my day's not over. It's like 2:30, 3 o'clock. And I'd been on this thing since daylight. I'm like, I could get back to this road and it's going to take like an hour or whatever to get back to my truck or more. I could have like a 15-minute hunt just before dark right off this road. And he, anyway, I could not, I marked it with my GPS. It wasn't a GPS that had maps. It just had the waypoint. So I did get back to my truck. I came onto the main road. Game warden stops. I'm like, you got to give me a ride to my truck. I'm up on. He's like, did you see anything? I was like, yeah, I seen 2 really nice bucks. You got to give me a ride. He's like, I can't give you a ride. And he drives off, leaves me there. I'm like, you rotten bugger.
Wow.
So I hoof it back. Someone did, nice local, gave me a ride. Got in my truck. Went back to a road. And I'd never been on. Didn't know the names. Didn't know anything about it. And I could not get any closer than a mile from that buck. And it was getting darker and darker. And I am picturing me freaking out, driving all these log rolls as fast as I can. And I just ran out of daylight. Got back to town and told one of the guys at the motel what had happened. And he said, oh, when you pull on road, there's a big gravel pit. You got to take the road through the gravel pit. And
Oh no.
yeah, so that was the last Saturday of rifle. On Sunday, I went back to where I pushed him across a clear cut, jump out, no gun. I can't hunt Sunday in Maine. And that deer went maybe 200 or 300 yards beyond the road, bedded down, got up, and walked back out into that clear cut that night. Oh my gosh!
Oh man.
I should have stuck it out up there. It got super cold and a lot of snow, and I'll never go anywhere hunting again without tire chains with me.
Yeah.
I would drive those roads and would compress the snow, and then the wind would blow and it'd fill the ruts in it. It'd make like a hump, and then after you drove those roads 2 or 3 times, the truck won't go straight anymore. It tracks either this way or that way.
You get off the side of it. You know
get
it
off
too.
the side of it, and you're gonna that's big country up there.
Yeah.
And I wimped out. I came home.
Yeah.
But that was one of my best hunts I ever had.
That's a good hunt. Keeps you coming back for more.
Yep. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was a big buck. He was yeah, that was a big one. A lot of fun. And that's why I tell my kids, I'm like, some of the best hunts you'll ever have, you won't get a deer.
Yeah, amen to that. So let me ask you something. A little piece of advice to some of those younger guys listening that got families. Little advice to those guys how to get their kids out in the outdoors like you've done. Especially girls. I mean,
Yeah,
it's very, very difficult.
it is. You got to make it fun as possible. We went to New Hampshire. I think we probably hunted youth. We probably hunted youth in New Hampshire just as soon as we hunted youth in Vermont. As soon as age-wise. And I would just spoil Brooke. I would.
I think that was the first time we went hunting and I didn't kill a deer, which was, we're so spoiled around here that when we went there, I was like, well, this sucks. But we still had fun. Like, I'll never forget it. But I think having that success has a lot to do with it too.
Yeah.
If you're not killing deer as a kid, like
You lose
it's
interest.
it's not fun, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, that's a good question, Joey, because that's something I always struggled with was you want your kid to get a deer and be successful, but not too successful. You don't want to go out opening morning in 5 minutes and shoot a 200-pound buck. Like, there's no challenge in that. There's no fun in that. It has to be challenging enough. When they do get one, they can appreciate it. But
Yeah.
I try to make an adventure. My kids would make a lot of noise. I mean, she's got big feet when she's behind me. And she did a lot of stomping. It's like, Brooke, could you stomp on anymore?
what do you think, Joey? Am I still bad?
No, you're
And-
not that bad.
And Dylan too, Haven too. And I remember Haven's first hunt. He climbed a tree. He similar to Brooke. He heard some bucks grunting.
Well, we can.
That's
That's all right. We
It's
can.
all right.
We can end it on that. Well,
yeah,
Andy,
that's
thank you.
good. Yep, you're welcome.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Brooke. Thank you for
thanks.
setting it all up and joining.
course.
And it was a good time.
Yes.
All right. Until the next one.
No one can save you. You better